Good morning on this Sunday, October the 17th. This is our morning brief for before worship on Sunday mornings. This is a chance for me to just highlight something from the scriptures that I won't necessarily be focusing on in the sermon. Again, our scriptures are so rich and so deep, and there are so many ways in which we learn and what each of us, may glean from the readings. And so I just want to point out one other thing today about the scriptures, other than what we'll be focusing on, which this morning our scripture readings are from Matthew chapter 5 and then from Ephesians chapter 4. And mostly I'll be focusing on a particular phrasing and a translation from Ephesians. So in this morning brief, I'd like to talk about our Matthew chapter 5 reading. And it's 43 through 48 if you want to look it up. It's part of the Sermon on the Mount. So Jesus is speaking with, probably thousands of people on the hillside. And in this particular section, he has several things that he's talking about. And he always starts with, you have heard it said, and then whatever the saying is. And then he says, but I tell you, or but I say. So in today's reading, it's, you have heard it said to love your neighbor and hate your enemies. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. So this is, I want to focus on, I think we understand this and have heard this before. Not only love your neighbors, not only love those who love you back, but love those who are against you. This whole idea of, you have heard it said, but I say to you. So where have these people heard this before? What is it that they've heard? Where did they get that from? And it's not always scripture. We think that the people were so aware of scripture, or that that's all that they've known. Because remember, they're all, for the most part, they're all Jews that are with Jesus. So they've already had a relationship with God. And so in this particular case, there isn't really scripture that outright says, hate your enemies. But when you think about just the whole history of God's people, there have been wars. There's been conflict between groups, especially Jews and Gentiles, or other nations. And certainly in the very moment that Jesus is speaking to the people on the hillside, there is a sense of the Romans being enemies, right? And so it really has, the whole idea of hating your enemy isn't about something that scripture had said, but something that everyone was living. It had become part of the way of life. It had become taught because of the wars or the occupations or the oppression. And just naturally, what happens is when we are hearing and living through such times, we can easily start attaching this negative connotation of enemies against those whom we feel are hurting us or oppressing us, or who are actually doing that. And so what Jesus is, I believe, doing, and especially in this moment, you have heard it said you should love your neighbors and hate your enemies, but I say to you, love your enemies. I mean, it was really, really changing things up. That this was really turning things on its head, upsetting the way the world was working. Because it is somewhat comforting to place ourselves against another. Because then we feel like we are right. We feel that we are whole. We feel that we are good. But Jesus said, this is not the way you are to be. You love your enemies just as you love your neighbor. You love those who try to hurt you, and you pray for them. As I think about that in this time, I find it so easy, so easy to slip into. Um, I don't want to say hatred, but judgment, which I think leads to hatred. I don't think those are mutually exclusive things, but um, just it really is helpful for us to think about, why is that person doing this, or why is that person acting this way toward me? Why? What's going on in their life that is creating such turmoil in their life that they lash out at me or at others? And when we begin asking those kind of questions, it would lead us to pray for that person. And I'm never ever I shouldn't be surprised, but it comes up all the time that when I'm looking at scripture and meditating on scripture, like I have this last week, that God brings a situation to light, to where I understand what this is saying. And this week I did a couple of interactions with people who I feel are after me, which is not probably true. So let me just tell you that. But I am so grateful for the Spirit to remind me to pray for them, and to think about why things are happening the way they are, and how, just praying for them and trying to love them back, even though that's not something I receive from them. So that is what I'd like to highlight this morning from our scriptures. Today in the sermon, we'll be talking about revolution, and we're going to be talking about spiritual revolution, not a violent overtaking of anything or anyone. And I think it's going to be beautiful service with a live stream. Will begin at 10 a.m. We have shifted a little bit of what we're doing. So please, if you are watching online, you can watch at 10 a.m. And then, of course, the videos are going to be available all through the week. So you can go to our website or our YouTube channel or our Facebook and find the worship service and watch at a time that's convenient for you. This day, I just pray that you have ears to hear what Jesus is saying, that your ears will take in, and that your mind will discern what is of the ways of the world and what it is that Jesus says. May you be blessed. May you have a gorgeous day on this fall day, and may the Spirit comfort you. Peace be with you. Amen.